This is the Thriving Artist Podcast with Andrea Fleming, where we talk about how to go from surviving as an artist to thriving as an artist. Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Obviously, the first thing I have to say is like, comment, subscribe if you're on YouTube, and on Spotify, review. What are the other things? I always forget. Leave a rating, give me feedback, all the standard stuff. If you're watching on YouTube, you get to see me in my rainbow unicorn onesie because it's December and I'm celebrating winter. Actually, it's just because I wanted to wear a onesie and it's so comfortable and I didn't want to take it off for the podcast, but it's fitting because it is winter and it's getting freezing outside. In fact, the past few days, I'm recording this in November, but the past couple of weeks, I've had to wear my wool knitted mittens, and I don't like winter and I want to be as warm as possible. So this is you celebrating with me, being warm as possible. Anyway, so today's podcast, we're talking about how to not feel icky networking. This, I feel like, is the bane of all artists' existence, unless you're just one of those people who are naturally social. But I find that a lot of a lot of artists tend to be introverts and or have social anxiety and or just want to be in it for the art. And so they don't want to do all the networking stuff. And I resonate on all of those levels, on all of those topics, areas, whatever you want to call it. Because growing up, I used to be extremely socially anxious to the point of like, I couldn't even meet new people on my own. Like I literally had to be introduced to people when I was growing up. And I had this crazy fear of even being on the phone. Like I wouldn't call, even when I became a teenager into adulthood, I had this fear, but like I would have my mom call and make all of my doctor's appointments, call and schedule all of my lessons, and like delivering food, like forget it. I just would not eat if I had to have food delivered. So like it was really bad. So I completely get it why some people are so hesitant to network, even if it's just like you feel gross doing it because it feels fake or like pushy or just inauthentic in some kind of way. I totally understand that. But there is a way to network and not feel icky about it. And this is so important because I feel like you can't really escape it as an artist. Networking is just such a huge part of our business, which is the topic of our this month's conversation, is just becoming business minded about art because it is a business. And networking is just a huge part of that. You can't escape it. You have to know how to talk to people and connect with people and have social skills and promote yourself and engage with other people about their art. Is just like interwoven. So how do you not feel icky doing it? I'm going to share my top 3 ways of thinking about it that completely changed it for me. And now I don't have any social anxiety. This coupled with like just doing work on myself and how I think about myself, these 3 ways of thinking about it really changed it for me. So let's start with number 1, which is focusing on connecting with people rather than having an agenda, which means that when you go out and you network with people, let's say you're going to an awards event or you're going to somebody else's performance and you want to meet people who are in your industry and get to know what they're doing and share what you're doing. Instead of focusing on that agenda of trying to get your work out there and trying to make sure that people know who you are, just focusing on connecting with people and like genuinely getting to know them and finding things that you think are interesting about them. And sometimes that might mean, shockingly enough, that you don't actually carry on a relationship with some people because you just don't genuinely connect with them. And that's good. That's actually kind of the point. Like you want to be networking with people who actually vibe with your energy and you vibe with their energy, because that's how you know that they're probably going to like you as an artist as well, right? As artists, we put our whole and natural, authentic selves into our art, or at least I hope that you do that, because that's kind of the point. And so when we're out networking with people, we want people who actually like us and enjoy us for who we are. And we want to engage with people who we actually appreciate and enjoy their energy, because chances are if we like them, they're probably going to have some kind of connection with our artistic expression. So when we go out to network, we want to focus on actually genuinely connecting with people and thinking of it as just connecting with people and getting to know people and having people get to know us. When we do that, it kind of takes the pressure off to do anything or get anything. It takes the pressure off to have some kind of outcome from our social or networking events. And instead, what happens is we will naturally start to create a following for ourselves. It'll be more authentic and it'll be a lot easier and a lot less, there will be a lot less resistance. You'll notice that people, when you gain a following this way, people will naturally want to hear your work and people will naturally want to share your work. They will ask you about what you're doing instead of you having to push it on them. So focusing on connecting with people is going to be a huge, huge shift for you. If you just did that, I feel like networking will not only become easier, you'll become natural at it and you'll want to do it a lot more. That's what happened for me. The second thing that I started doing was focusing on practicing being my best self. So I would actually plan networking events so I could practice being who I am. That sounds kind of strange, but hear me out. Like this was a game changer for me because I was focusing on being my best self. People actually got to know the real me and they actually got to know, surprise or shocker, the best part of me. I wasn't holding myself back anymore. I wasn't in my head anymore because I was just focusing on showing up as fully as possible. And because I was doing it this way, rather than, I guess the opposite of that was like trying to hide myself and trying to make sure people didn't see all of my flaws, I was focusing on my strengths more. And I was focusing on, I guess, because I was focusing on showing people my best self, which is like how I would prefer to show up as an artist, people got to know who I was as an artist a lot faster. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to try to explain it in a different way. As artists, we try to put our most authentic and best selves out there, right? So because I was focusing on my best self, they got to kind of see a preview of that before. And this actually gets reflected to me a lot now that I'm a lot more practiced at this. I had a meeting with my agent the other day, and he basically was like, we were looking through all of my older videos when I wasn't this great at being my best self and showing up fully as myself. We were looking at all of my older videos and he was like, this seems like a completely different person. Who I'm seeing in this videos is not the person you're showing up as today. And he was basically explained to me that now when I sing and when I put out my self tapes or whatever he sees of my artistry, it's apparent that I am being authentic and it lines up with who I am when I'm in the room. So when you practice showing up as your best self when you're in social events, that's who they're going to see, right? That's who you want them to see anyway when you are presenting your work. So they get to have a preview of that when this is your focus. The third thing that I started focusing on, and I just want to preface this by saying this is kind of a newer practice for me. I've been practicing this for maybe the past year, and it's such a rewarding practice. The third one, which is focusing on giving when you show up rather than getting something. This is kind of underlying the connection one too, but I feel like specifically focusing on giving rather than getting, not only does it shift the focus for you off of like the negative parts of networking, but it feels really, really good to do it because you're not being that inauthentic person. You're not being that selfish person, which is a lot of times what makes networking feel icky for people. It also, when you're focused on giving rather than getting in your energy, it draws people into you a lot more easily and naturally because, I mean, if you think about it, when people are receiving something, they get a lot more excited, they get a lot more connected. Like when you get a gift from someone, doesn't it just make you really love that person more when you are receiving a hug from someone or when people acknowledge you and look in your eyes and you're receiving their energy? It just makes you feel special and acknowledged and seen and heard. So that's what I've noticed is like, it magnetizes people to you, which is not really the point. I don't want you to like flip it around and be like, to magnetize people to me, I have to focus on giving. That's not the point. And actually it puts you back in an agenda when you're thinking like that. So it kind of does the reverse, and people can feel that. It feels fake and inauthentic. But when you're genuinely focused on showing up and giving, then that's when the magic happens. That's when the magnetism happens. And you'll start to notice it right away. I feel like I notice it right away when I turn it on and I'm like, okay, today, what can I give to people? I notice it right away that people are just like, phew. In fact, people comment on it now. It's crazy to me, the transformation in my social skills and my social energy now from when I was a younger kid or even a young adult. Like, I've only really started becoming more equipped and more skilled, more qualified is not the word I'm looking for, but more natural at being social in the past like 2 or 3 years. And I would say even the past 2 years. But now people actually comment on it. It's really bizarre to me. I remember in rehearsal a couple of weeks ago, I walked in the room and I just like greeted people. I didn't do anything specific. I just like was like, hey, how are you? And like 3 people were like, I just want to tell you, you have the best energy in the world. And I feel so good in your presence. And like, if, and they were like, I feel like I've known you for 15 years and it just feels so good to be around you. And I was like, thank you. That's the best compliment anyone could ever receive, is knowing that people feel good in your presence. That's an amazing compliment. And all I did was focus on what can I give today? And notice it didn't, the outcome of that wasn't me actually like giving something physical to someone. It wasn't me actually doing anything in particular. It was an energetic thing. I focused on giving my energy and giving my presence and giving my focus, I guess. What's the word I'm looking for? I guess focus and presence, acknowledging people, seeing people. So you don't have to give anything. It's not like you have to go pick up something at the store and buy it. It's literally just about shifting your focus to showing up for other people and giving them acknowledgement and actually seeing them and being fully present with them. So those are my top 3 tips for making networking not feel icky. Focusing on connecting with people, practicing showing up and being your best self, like making that the practice, and focusing on giving to people rather than trying to get something from them. If you only implemented one of these things, I promise you networking would feel so much better for you. And it actually would be a lot more effective than you trying to go out and do things and trying to make people like your art and make people follow you. And once you start doing it, you're going to notice from other people, the difference between the two. You'll notice people who are trying to push their art on you. Hey, can you share my post? Hey, can you follow me? Hey, can you have other people follow me? Hey, go like this, go like that, right? Versus people walking up and being like, hey, how are you? What have you been up to lately? And then you genuinely asking because you're interested what they're doing. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm just got off tour or whatever. Oh yeah, what's your tour? It happens so naturally. It just becomes a natural conversation. And because you're showing up as an awesome person who is focused on them and interested in them, and you're just connecting with them, it takes the pressure off from them to do anything. And if they like you, if they're naturally engaging with your energy, it's much more likely that they're going to be like, I like this person. I wonder what kind of art they do. I bet you their art is going to be something I connect with because I connect with them as a human being. It just makes it's kind of like common sense, but it's not so common, especially for artists. I don't know what it is. Like, you would think that we'd be just naturally really good at it. And some artists are, but not all of us. I mean, some of us really deal with social issues and like social anxiety or trying too hard or whatever it may be, like trying to prove something. I don't know. It's just very common, especially in theater. I don't know what that's about. But anyway, practice these things. It's going to get better for you. I promise. That, along with just in general, just getting to know yourself better and liking yourself more, and finding things that you feel good about in your own artistry and in your own personality, so that when you show up, it's not trying to get people to like you. It's so much easier when you just do it this way. Okay, that's it for this episode. It was a short one today. I appreciate that. I hope you appreciate that. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and all the other stuff that you know what to do. I don't know. I don't have to remind you. Okay. Talk to you on the next one.